Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sempre Milan bonus podcast on Substack. This week, we are going to be taking a look at Milan's record in the direct clashes and how it has improved so drastically from last season. Buongiorno, amico mio. How is it going?
It is well, thank you. Milan are good. Life is good. It's
Did you say
a
we're
direct
back?
correlation. I can't speak. Did we ever leave?
Did we ever
We
leave?
did. We did. Yeah.
Finishing 8th last season certainly wasn't ideal. That was sort of leaving a bit. But
But
go on,
I've
what was the
forgotten about that
direct
already.
correlation? Your appearances and us being good?
No, because I think I was on one last season at some point. I was only in the summer, and the summer was good. So that was all right. I can't remember what else I've done though.
In the summer, it
About
was
players.
Is that where we pitched the Mercato thing?
Yeah, we did that.
Yeah.
I think we did two bonuses as well. Two player profiles. One of them was Estepinian. Make of that what you will.
Old Purvis, relegated to backup.
He's a good lad, isn't he?
He's a great lad. He's a great man. Yeah. Look, mate. Derby win. Big. Monumental.
Huge. We said before the game, I think what would have been Tuesday or Wednesday? About this time last week, it was, would you take a draw if you offered it right now? We both said without a doubt, yeah. I think coming into the game, you would just take a point, just get in there, get out of there safe, keep the streak going, keep in a position where you don't really look like you are worried by the kind of top six, and Inter, as much as they've had their issues this season, are still the big dogs in Italy. There's no getting around that. So getting any result in the away fixture would all automatically be kind of more interesting to see whether we could keep going on that form. So for us to get 3 points and look kind of how we did is something in itself. And for it seemed a lot like the Roma game where we kind of got the goal, sat on it, and then Inter came back into it a bit more. And then there was the mistake. We had a second kind of lease of life. And that was... It's worrying long term because I don't think it's sustainable long term. But in the short term, here and now, it's kind of a case of you can get through it while you're still bedding players in, because it's Rabiot's first game. Pulisic has admitted since he wasn't 100%. There's the Leao debacle, which I think is still fair to call it that. So you're still not really at 100%. You give these players another kind of 2-3 months to settle in, learn what they're going to be doing exactly, and get back to full strength. And that's where it then changes, and you can kind of take away that second lease of life, and it's just one period of the game.
Yeah, it's a decent platform to build from, and at the very least, it should inspire a lot of confidence how we're getting on in these games. But it's a funny one because the derby is usually a fixture that goes against form, and I think Inter would have been the bookmakers' favourites going into Sunday because they were top of the league at the time, and they seem to have already started gelling really nicely under Kivu. But the derby does go against form, and yet it kind of went with our form in these 6-point games. And yeah, there is certainly a lot of similarities with that win against Roma, in terms of riding out a spell of pressure from the opponent, striking at maybe the right moment in the game, and then giving away a penalty that looks set to rob us of 3 points, and Maignan stepping up and saving it from a prolific penalty taker. There are a lot of parallels with that. Before we talk about what's happened this season, especially in the other direct games in Italy, which I don't think translates literally. I don't think head-to-head translates literally either. We call them 6-pointers, won't we?
Yeah.
As English football fans. But I think people get the message, the ones where you're playing against teams also in the top 5 or in the top 8 or whatever. You can judge it on different metrics. Rivals for the European spots, basically. When you're playing against those teams, and those points mean more because it's not just you taking the 3, it's them dropping the 3. That's where the 6-pointer expression comes from anyway. I'm going to share screen for a minute, and I want to revisit our record in these particular games last season. Now, of course, where we finished in the league means that there were 8 teams above us. Sorry, there were 7 teams above us in the table. But I'm going to rope Bologna into this particular thing. So it's basically the other teams in the top 9 because we had some battles with Bologna last season. So we'll go chronologically. The first one of these head-to-head clashes is against Lazio away from home. It's probably best remembered for being the cooling break game involving Rafael Leao and Teo Hernandez and the then coach Paulo Fonseca. We went 1-0 up, we go 2-1 down, and then we equalise through Leao, who had just come off the bench. We were unable to get 3 points in that one, and it sort of dialed up the pressure even more on Fonseca because he had gone winless in his first 3 league games. But nonetheless, in isolation, not a terrible result to go to Lazio away and get a draw. Then, little upturn. Our first derby win in 7 meetings. We'd lost all of the previous 6 going into that game. Fonseca pulled out a masterclass for that one.
Genius. I still don't know how that worked.
Yeah, you did the report for that one, didn't you? Because I was
yeah.
And I wasn't able to watch the game live due to watching Liam Gallagher. It was pre-booked, so forgive me for missing the derby. But I ended up surrounded by Milan fans at the gig, and we were all saying beforehand, just take a loss with damage limitation, sort of a 1-0, 2-1, something like that. And then he goes 4-2-4 and surprises Inter, and we win that 1-2-1. So good start here. We've taken 4 points from two of these games. Then we go and lose 2-1 away at Fiorentina. That was a debacle. We had 2 penalties in that game and missed them both. We equalised in it to sort of get a foothold back. And I think, penalties are penalties. They're a bit of a lottery, but when you miss 2 in the same game, everybody's feeling the same sense of frustration. Also, the penalties generated a bit of controversy because the man who was meant to take them ended up having them robbed off him. Pulisic was meant to take them, Pulisic, and Tammy and Teo were the ones who ended up taking them and both failed to convert.
I think what was most damaging about them as well, was the fact that both of them were before international breaks. And then you had to sit on that for 2 weeks, and there was I remember the reports around that time were just Fonseca has 2 weeks to do this, Fonseca has 2 weeks to do that, Fonseca has 2 weeks to solve this situation.
Yeah.
It was the only thing for 2 weeks. And when you're I can't speak. When you're in an international break, that's a tongue twister. In an international break. So when you're in that situation anyway, and it's a bit more deader, for want of a better way of putting it, people just stick on that, and it happened this season with the Leao chances against Juventus.
Yes,
but people just stuck on them, and that was it for 2 weeks, where you're in that kind of echo chamber of there are problems with the cooling break. The players don't like Fonseca, and then it was the players don't respect each other because of the Pulisic situation, and it was just that, and it just felt like this just breeding ground of negativity, and it was, to be fair, but there was just no escaping that anyway, which almost definitely kind of played into how that start of the season was, and with the pressure on Fonseca to kind of step away from Pioli and him just anyway because of the entire managerial thing that summer. It just, from that point onwards, I remember it was just kind of, I think it was even in the first international break there were questions about his job, and by the second point it was pretty much, when is he going to go?
Yeah, because it was like the first weekend in September. Not first weekend, like the first fortnight in September was that international break. So we played 3 games, won none of them. And then, we beat Venezia 4-0 and we look convincing, but it's like, it's Venezia. Then we get battered at home by Liverpool in the Champions League, which I was also in Malta for. I went to a bar to watch that one. And it was full of Liverpool fans, as you can imagine. Turns out Liverpool would be a very good team last year, but we didn't know that at the moment. We just thought they're finding their feet under Arne Slot. That's a bad result at home after taking the lead. Yeah, then we win that derby, and then we win against Lecce, and it's like, okay, building a bit of momentum back up the table. All of a sudden, we've 1 defeat in 6, and we've won 3 of those games, and then you lose to Fiorentina, so you get bumped back again. Win against Udinese, which was a dramatic one. They had a very, very late equaliser overturned by VAR. It's like, okay, we've sort of bounced back here. A nice win with resilience, showing we can defend when we want to. And then we lose at home to Napoli 2-0, a rather convincing, comprehensive defeat where we never really looked in it. As it would turn out, Napoli would go on and win the league. But at the time, you always think we'll put up a better fight than that against them. We would beat them this season and they're the champions. And then, moving on, that 3-3 game against Cagliari, I remember that being a very frustrating one because we had the game right where we wanted it. I went 3-2 up relatively late on and failed to hang on to it. Just not good. And again, as you were mentioning, pressure dials up because that's before an international break. We got 2 weeks and then we're playing Juve, and there was definitely talk of it being sort of do or die in that game. A loss would have got him sacked or whatever. That was a horrendous game, the Juve one, the 0-0 draw. Yeah. It was not a good advert for Italian football at all. Really, really bad. And it did very little to ease the worries because it was yet another team that were in and around us that we'd failed to show anything against, really. And then we come to the next 6 point, it would be 6th of December against Atalanta away. We lose that 1-2-1. It was a late winner from, who was it? Lookman, I believe. I think we failed to react to a corner and Lookman finished from close range.
And that was the Fonseca one where he came out and said that the refs are all against Milan and everything like that, which just didn't help anything.
So we're beyond cracks now, aren't we? We're into full-blown chasms, really, really struggling in these games against teams around us. And then the couple of results that come before Christmas, there's all the stuff about will Fonseca eat his panettone, which is sort of the Italian media's way of saying, will he see out the new year? Or will he see out the year into the new year? The answer is no, he wouldn't. We drew 0-0 with Genoa in the game where we wore the 125th anniversary shirts. I always remember that because I just really wanted goal pictures with that shirt on. We didn't get any. Then we win 1-0 against Verona, and that was a really, really scrappy game. Town beat Cambridge that night, I think, 4-0 away from home. Callum Marshall scored twice.
Friday night?
Yeah, that was the same night because I was at the Town game instead. And then, there's a constant theme here. And then Roma proved to be the last hurrah for Fonseca. We got sacked after a 1-1 draw against them. Tijani Reinders scored the goal in that one, and that would be it for him. You could say that he paid for those losses. When you look up there and you see defeats against Atalanta, Napoli and Fiorentina, you see us sort of failing to beat Juventus, obviously Roma, Lazio. But I just think he paid for general inconsistency. And I think he paid for a lot. He paid for a lot of the noise that surrounded his tenure in terms of, as you mentioned, kind of issues with players and the fact that we were almost a scandal a week at that point in terms of certain stars not obeying orders and things like that. But it's not going well at this point. In comes Sergio Conceição, somebody who probably is more well-versed, shall we say, in being used to these big games, because when you manage in Portugal, obviously he was Porto boss for a long time. The games against Benfica and Sporting are the ones that can decide your fate pretty much, because it's always those three teams that are in the running. And if you come out on top in that little triangle, you're giving yourself a really good chance. And of course, it starts well. We beat Juventus and Inter to lift the Supercoppa Italiana at the start of January. Going great there. And then, the same old problems come back. We draw with Cagliari. We go and lose 2-0 away against Juve. I remember that being a particularly abject performance. Really, really poor. We did not play well in that one at all. We did not look like scoring. They did score through Mbangula and Weah. It was a pretty quick fire brace either side of the hour mark. And we were really poor in that game. Draw 1-1 with Inter. We're leading right up until the death there. We commit to seeing it out from a relatively early stage, and Stefan de Vrij pops up in the 94th minute to equalise for Inter. On the balance of play, it's probably a point that they deserve, but it was just another hammer blow in one of these games that we could have done without. Then we come to this block at end of February, start of March, where we lose away at Torino. We lose away at Bologna, so that's a direct clash, and then we lose at home to Lazio. And it's like, okay, we're going to be looking for another coach again ahead of next season. There's a lot of fractious stuff going on. I mean, we would beat, where's the Parma game? 26th of January. So he's less than a month into his reign. We score twice late on to come from behind and beat Parma.